5 days have passed since the horrifying tragedy at the Brentwood residence, where Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were brutally murdered. Yet, newly emerging details about the case continue to send shivers down the public's spine. A hypothetical forensic report has revealed the presumed moment when Nick Reiner struck, along with the fatal stab wounds delivered to critical areas of the body, including one deep slash across Rob's neck that read like a terrifying challenge. "Shut up. Say nothing more." Each detail, as it is re-examined, seems to paint an agonizing, suffocatingly painful story. The cause of the tragedy appears to trace back to a heated argument at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party, when Nick reportedly displayed signs of abnormal and unstable mental behavior. After committing the crime, he allegedly left the scene with chilling nonchalance, went into hiding at a hotel, and now is using his inheritance money to hire Alan Jackson, one of the top defense attorneys in the United States, to represent him. Who could possibly believe in such cold-bloodedness and brutality? Conscience seems to have completely vanished from a man who has fallen so far. One Nick's blood-soaked course of action that night. It was precisely from the tense dinner involving Nick that police began reconstructing the tragic timeline that unfolded within the Reiner family. According to the indictment issued by the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, the attack occurred sometime between midnight and the early morning hours, possibly between 1:27 a.m. and 6 o'clock a.m. Nick quietly left his own room and entered the main house where his parents were asleep in the master bedroom. There were no signs of forced entry, as he already had keys and was familiar with every corner of the house. After carrying out the attack, Nick immediately left the crime scene, carrying with him either a sense of panic or a cold, calculated clarity that only he himself would know. At around 4 o'clock a.m., Nick appeared at the front desk of the Payside Hotel in Santa Monica, approximately a 20-minute drive from Brentwood. He checked into a modest room paid in cash or by card, and did not draw any particular attention from hotel staff. During those brief hours, no one saw him make phone calls or rest for long, as if he were merely seeking temporary shelter or simply wandering in a psychologically chaotic state after what had just occurred. At approximately 3:40 p.m. later that same day, the tragedy was discovered. A massage therapist arrived at the house for an appointment scheduled with Rob and Michelle, but no one answered the door. She immediately called Romy, who rushed over to the house with her boyfriend. Upon opening the door, she discovered her father's body lying in the master bedroom and in panic called 911. Police arrived and soon found Michelle's body in a nearby area. While the family and law enforcement were confronting this unspeakable horror, Nick remained at large for several more hours. By around 9 o'clock p.m., a security camera at an Arco gas station near Exposition Park close to USC captured footage of Nick purchasing a bottle of sports drink. He appeared anxious, repeatedly looking around, yet remained calm enough to complete the transaction. Just minutes later, at approximately 9:15 p.m., lapped officers working in coordination with the U.S. Marshal swiftly surrounded and arrested Nick. He did not resist remaining silent as police placed him in handcuffs. Recorded images show a young man with a weary, hollow expression on his face. Forensic experts determined the time of death based on rigor mortis and body temperature. When emergency responders arrived at the scene, the victims had already begun to stiffen. Based on calculations, Rob and Michelle may have died approximately 3 to 4 hours before they were discovered. Investigators also noted the possibility that Nick may have cleaned himself up at the scene or showered at the hotel. Traces of blood could still have remained on his clothing or body, and surveillance cameras recorded his movements in Santa Monica. As for the weapon, experts believe it was an opportunistic weapon, such as a kitchen knife or a meat cleaver readily available in the home. His familiarity with the environment allowed Nick to act with ruthless precision without the need for specialized tools, resulting in a blood-soaked crime scene within a house that was once deeply familiar. 2. Dozens of cold-blooded stab wounds in the bedroom. According to the latest information, the cause of death of Rob and Michelle Reiner was determined to be throat slashing. Initially, the public was only aware of a single cut, but forensic examinations later confirmed that both victims sustained multiple stab wounds, revealing the horrifying level of violence they endured. Professor Joseph Scott Morgan, an applied forensic expert at Jacksonville State University and the host of the program Body Bags, emphasized that multiple stab wounds indicate clear intent and direct action requiring significant force and reflecting the extreme brutality of the crime. According to him, injuries caused by sharp weapons, represent one of the most severe forms of violence, typically occurring at very close range and requiring the perpetrator to deliberately invade the victim's personal space. Knife attacks often demand a high level of physical energy and usually take place in rapid succession. When numerous wounds are present, the term overkill is often used to describe the intensity of the assault, although it does not apply in every case. In this incident, the presence of both long slashing wounds and deep puncture wounds indicates a prolonged violent and intentional attack. Joseph Scott Morgan further analyzed that stab wounds tend to be deeper, while slash wounds are longer, but more superficial. This combination demonstrates that the assault was not a momentary outburst, but rather a sequence of deliberate actions involving clear force and technique. From a forensic standpoint, cutting someone's throat is rarely as quick and clean as portrayed in films. The victim usually must be restrained and pressed against a surface so that the attacker can use body weight pressure and a pulling motion of the blade across the neck, making the act especially horrifying and purposeful. These details add even more weight and anguish to the picture of Rob and Michelle Reiner's final hours, haunting not only their family, but also everyone following the case. The horror is compounded by initial reports suggesting that the two victims may have been lying in bed when they were killed. If that is true, the perpetrator must have had an intimate understanding of the house, the location of the bedrooms, the victims' daily routines, their sleeping habits, and how easily they might be awakened. Attacking directly from close range or from behind implies a complete violation of the victim's personal space, possibly even requiring the attacker to climb onto the bed to exert sufficient force. The mere thought of this is enough to make one shudder. The crime scene was soaked in blood. The neck contains many major blood vessels, and when damaged, blood can spray forcefully and spread widely. Combined with other stab wounds, each thrust of the knife further compromised the circulatory system until life was extinguished. And all evidence points in a single direction toward Nick Reiner, the third person living in the house, and the one who could freely enter his parents' bedroom without arousing suspicion. 3. The man accused of killing his parents calmly pays his lawyer with their own inheritance. Almost immediately, a pressing question arose. How much will Nick Reiner's legal defense cost? Alan Jackson is not an ordinary attorney. He is one of the most prominent names in criminal defense in the United States, known for taking on only the most complex and high-profile cases. By contrast, Nick has no clearly established career, lived largely dependent on his wealthy family, and had previously worked with his father on a film project in 2016. In the past, Alan Jackson reportedly reduced his fees for Karen Reed. Yet, the total legal costs still amounted to approximately $10 million. In Nick's case, the expenses could be even higher due to the gravity of the charges and the intense sustained media attention. Even with a discounted rate, such a sum would remain far beyond the means of most people. When questioned directly outside the courthouse, Alan Jackson declined to comment on the source of the funds. He responded only briefly, "I cannot comment on who is paying the fees." This silence has only fueled public speculation, ranging from theories that Jackson is working pro bono because of the case's notoriety to more elaborate conjectures about hidden arrangements. However, on December 18, 2025, several sources close to the Reiner family revealed a shocking detail. The legal fees are reportedly being paid from the estate of Rob and Michelle Reiner, estimated to be worth approximately $200 million. The reasoning behind this decision reportedly comes from surviving family members such as Jake and Rami Reiner. Despite their profound grief and outrage, they have chosen to hire the best possible legal representation for Nick with the goal of pursuing a defense based on mental illness and lack of criminal responsibility. They believe that if Nick is committed to a high-security psychiatric facility rather than sentenced to life imprisonment, it would be a more humane outcome and perhaps what Rob and Michelle themselves would have wanted for their son. Under California law, if Nick is convicted of murder, he will forfeit all inheritance rights from his parents. However, the law does not prohibit other family members or estate executives from using a portion of the estate to cover legal expenses for the defendant before a final verdict is reached. Some independent legal experts such as Shaw Weisbart have stated that this practice is legally permissible at the current stage of proceedings. Nevertheless, opposing opinions argue that an estate executive could refuse to authorize such payments in order to avoid potential legal and financial risks. As of now, there has been no official confirmation from either the family or the court regarding the precise source of the funds, leaving numerous unanswered questions circulating among the public and those closely following the case. 4. Nick Reiner's first appearance in court. Before delving further into the harrowing details, the focus turns to Nick Reiner's current legal situation. In addition to 2 counts of first-degree murder, the case file also cites aggravating circumstances. Due to the presence of multiple victims, Nick is currently being held at the Los Angeles County Jail and has made his first appearance in court. He wore the distinctive blue suit reserved for defendants, intended both as a safety measure and as a stark symbol of total downfall. Representing him is Alan Jackson, the renowned defense attorney known for winning numerous high-profile cases. During the hearing, the judge prohibited live cameras, further heightening the sense of mystery and tension surrounding the proceedings. Attorney Jackson requested a postponement of the formal arraignment so that Nick could consider whether or not to enter a plea. The request was approved and the preliminary hearing was rescheduled for January 7th, leaving many questions unanswered. The only moment the public heard Nick speak was when the judge reminded him of his constitutional rights. "Mr. Reiner, do you waive your right to a speedy trial so that the arraignment may be continued to January 7th, 2026? Nick replied briefly, "Yes, Your Honor, I do." No explanation, no justification, no visible emotion. The hearing ended so quickly it was almost jarring. January 7th has now become a critical milestone, a date on which the public and the media will continue to focus their attention. While the Reiner family tragedy continues to smolder in the collective imagination, the brevity and coldness of the hearing only underscored one thing. The case is far from over, and all eyes are now fixed on the upcoming court session, where justice itself will be put to the test. And before turning to that historic trial, let us look back at the most horrifying aspects uncovered by police investigators in this case. First and foremost is the tense gathering that took place on the 13th at Conan O'Brien's home. 5. Nick Reiner's battle with addiction. Behind this tragedy, it is impossible to ignore Nick Reiner's long and painful struggle with addiction. Born in 1993, Nick's descent into substance abuse began at a very early age when he was just 15 years old around 2008. That was when he first experimented with heroin and cocaine, powerful substances that pulled his already lost adolescence into a dark downward spiral. As the son of famed director Rob Reiner and the grandson of legendary Carl Reiner, Nick grew up under the crushing weight of a fame he never asked for, feeling that he did not belong in the glittering world of Hollywood. From the earliest signs his family recognized the seriousness of the problem. Rob and Michelle sent Nick to a rehabilitation center for the first time while he was still a minor. However, that was only the beginning of a long cycle of rehab admissions and relapses, at least 17 or 18 times in just the first few years. According to Nick's own later accounts, he would